How will the Wallabies and the All Blacks compare in 2020? This is something we probably should have already had the answer to, but with the pandemic and all, we haven't seen these two teams play. Both teams changed their coaches after the 2019 Rugby World Cup. I think there were generally pretty good feelings about the Wallabies appointment of Dave Rennie, whereas the New Zealand appointment of Ian Foster has gone down less. Well, it's been less well received anyway. But we can't judge either of them until they actually get some games. Interestingly, both camps have kind of narrowed down a little bit, seemingly, where their thoughts are in terms of the future of these squads. The All Blacks potentially will be made up of the guys from, the majority of them anyway, from the North and South squads which have been named. And the Wallabies have gone and named their players of national interest list. So there's certainly some interesting omissions and additions to those lists. What I've done, just for argument's sake, is gone and picked a 23-man squad from each of the camps. It's not really a squad that I would necessarily pick. It's kind of a best guess as to what the selectors might pick. It's probably well wrong, but it's trying to go with a bit of a balance of experience and some of the guys who've been in form in the Super Rugby Aotearoa and AU comps. So yeah, I'll go through the teams. You guys can let me know, how well do you think these squads compare? I was mainly looking to see, are we going to see some tight Bledisloe matches, or do you think the New Zealand dominance is still going to go on? Because I like to think under Dave Rennie that the guys are going to do well, and we will see some nice competitive matches. In terms of front rows, I've gone with Sio, Fainga, and Tupou for the Wallabies, whereas for the All Blacks I went with Moody, Taylor, and Tuanga Fasi. I don't know that there's a huge amount between those front rows, to be honest. I mean, Tupou is kind of getting all the plaudits in Super Rugby AU. It is obviously harder to compare when they're only playing other Australian sides, and some people will be quick to write off the AU competition. But, I mean, Tuanga Fasi has also been in top form for the Blues, so you got some proper form guys there. Moody and Sio have both kind of been solid. Maybe Moody's been more solid than Sio, who's not been that spectacular. Fainga gets a lot of tries at the back of that Brumbies maul. Taylor is certainly the more dynamic of the two hookers, and possibly with a better line-out throw. Second row I went with Simmons and Salakai Aloto for the Wallabies. Simmons mainly for the experience, man. He's got 100 caps. So, yeah, otherwise you're looking at a whole bunch of inexperience. Salakai Aloto is not as experienced, but he's no kind of rookie by any means, whereas Whitelock and Tuipulotu I think would probably take it in terms of if you're going to pick one or the other. I'd probably go with Whitelock and Tuipulotu, more experience. Like, Whitelock's got more experience than Simmons. And, yeah, that's just me. But I still think you've both those got one, like, kind of out-and-out lock and one more dynamic ball-carrying player. So both could be pretty competitive. Back rows, I've got Liam Wright, Michael Hooper, and Isi Naisarani. I reckon at the breakdown that'd be mighty effective, because Liam Wright seems to have his eyes on Michael Hooper's job. But with that big old contract that Michael Hooper's got, I can't see him not being the starting seven for the Wallabies. Now, interestingly, for the All Blacks, I've had to go with Frizzell, Papali'i at 7, and Savia at 8. I know Sam Cane's going to be the guy at 7, but I'm picking from the North and South lists, and he's injured, so I didn't pick him. I mean, both these sides have some pretty good back rowers. The Wallabies, even when they're struggling, still seem to have absolutely world-class back rowers. If you haven't been watching Super Rugby AU, Liam Wright has been in phenomenal form. But likewise, Shannon Frizzell, very different player from Liam Wright. Big ball-carrying man. So I put him there in the back row for the All Blacks. Him combined with Savia would be a very tasty combo. Papali'i as your fetcher. You could put somebody else, but it'll be Sam Cane when he's back fit. So maybe the breakdown you'd give to the Wallabies, but maybe the ball carrying you probably give to the All Blacks. So pick which one you want to take. Halfbacks, I went with Nick White and then Aaron Smith. Very different. Nick White's got a big old boot on him, and don't write him off just because he's been overseas. He's playing with Exeter, one of the best teams in the Premiership, and his boot is very helpful. If you're playing the All Blacks, sometimes having a big old boot to get you out of trouble can be a welcome thing. Aaron Smith, though, with that pass, is there a better distributor in the game? He is certainly right up there, and he found absolutely fine form for the Highlanders in Super Rugby Aotearoa. 10s, I went with James O'Connor and Richie Mo'unga. Mo'unga is just an absolutely devastating form. I don't know that you'd be able to pick a better 10 in the world at the moment. His goal kicking has been a bit hit and miss. O'Connor doesn't always take the goal kicks for the Reds, but he's gotten progressively better as well. Last game that I watched him play in Super Rugby AU, he got like 4 try assists and a try. So he's been in pretty sparkling form as well. If you ask me to pick one, I'm definitely going to pick Mo'unga, but O'Connor has not been a slouch by any means. Midfield is one where I think the All Blacks have got a fair bit of depth. I mean, I put Goodhue in ALB, 12 and 13. Like, for the Wallabies, I went Simone and Pataya. I mean, Pataya is a really good young player, and Simone at Super Rugby level has been absolutely consistent thus far this season, but man, that's a lot of experience compared to 2 relatively inexperienced guys for the Wallabies. So, yeah, that would be what's going to be. I mean, you can have Kurandrani as well, but I don't think he's been in that good form, at least from what I've seen him in Super Rugby AU. Back 3, I went with Dalgunu, Korobidi, and Hodge, so a couple of Fijian flyers on the wings. Hodge, the versatile man, also a big old boot. At the back, he's got a bit of a funny running style at times, so people think he's slow. He's not that slow, he's just got kind of bad acceleration. He doesn't get off the ground that fast. For the All Blacks, Crusaders wingers, Reese and Bridge. I know you can put in Will Jordan. I was trying to pick this in a relatively realistic way. I don't think you just hand out debuts left, right, and centre. I'm sure Will Jordan gets a call-up for the ABs. Maybe he makes the bench, but I've gone with Geordie Barrett as the fullback. Also a very big old boot. Bridge and Reese are, Super Rugby champions, so they've got it maybe mentally with a bit more experience, whereas Dalguna would be a debutant. Korobidi's got experience as well. He's like 28, and Hodge is kind of one of the more veteran style players. So yeah, those would be the starting 15s. Like I said, if I was going to pick my own one, I would probably make some changes, but I've kind of gone with a half my own picks and also half of what I think coaches may pick in terms of often going for a bit more experience at test level rather than dropping in a bunch of informed youngsters. Wallabies bench, Ulysses Slipper, Ala Alatoa forwards, like front row forwards. Matt Phillip, who's off to France for a short stint, but he's going to be back. Locke, Pete Samu, and they've got so much depth and loose force. They've still got Harry Wilson, who's been in phenomenal form as well. McDermott's the young 9. I reckon, again, maybe he's the form 9. Without doubt, he's the form 9 in Australia. Nick White's not even really played much, but I think his international experience maybe would give him the nod. McDermott needs to be on the bench at least. Tamua and Jack Maddox to round things out. All Blacks went with Almua, who interestingly he's played 2 matches for the All Blacks, but kind of no tests. He's played like a French team, French Barbarians, and was it the Barbarians? He's played 2 non-test matches anyway. Tuinukuafe, Laulala, props. Dunshea would be a debutant as lock. Remember, you got no Scott Barrett back yet, but he would be back. Lachlan Boshier, he'd be a debutant if he came off the bench. TJ, Rico, and Bodie to make out the rest of the side. So yeah, just a couple of possible lineups. Again, they're not going to be the real deal, but you guys can have a look at the lists from the North-South game and the rugby national player of interest list from the Wallabies to pick your own. Based on the guys that I picked, I honestly thought that the Kiwis would have a fair bit more age and a fair bit more experience, but it's actually turned out to be pretty even. Like, the number of caps average over the squad for the All Blacks is like 32, whereas the Wallabies is like 30. Not that much difference. I know if you go in 2 caps per player and you got 23 players, that does add up to be quite a bit of experience. It just doesn't feel like it when you look at it like in terms of 30 versus 32. And the average age for the All Blacks would be 26 based on the guys that I picked, and likewise 26 for the Wallabies. So, yeah, pretty much the same. I thought, yeah, it might be a bit different, but not so much. When you look at the totals, like you're looking at 749 caps against 690. That's where it does look like, okay, that's a lot more experience in the All Blacks camp. And if you add Sam Cane to that lot instead of Dalton Papali'i is 22 years old. He's got like 3 caps. If you add Sam Cane, like he's got, I think, 68 caps. 68 compared to 3. And then if you add Scott Barrett, he's 36 caps to Mitch Dunshea's none. That's when it starts to get pretty hairy if you're comparing Wallabies and All Blacks. With Kane, it's 814 caps for the All Blacks. And then if you add Scott Barrett, man, it's even more. So, yeah. seeing as I couldn't kind of find that differentiating metric based on just those numbers, I had a look at the World Cup teams in their last, well, not for their last games, but the games where both sides went out against England. If you look at the All Blacks, I'm pretty sure it was just Retallick, Reed, and Sonny Bill. So it's 3 guys who were in that team that are kind of no longer in the mix. I think all the other All Blacks guys, if I'm not mistaken, are still in the mix. And Retallick, you could even argue, is still going to be in the mix, just not at the moment. Whereas you look at the Wallabies, Latu, Rodda, Arnold, Pocock, Guinea, Liliafano, Karevi, Beale, and Coleman have all skedaddled on. So those, how many is it? 9 guys. Maybe that's where the feeling comes from. And I know the All Blacks lost Crotty and they lost Ben Smith. They just didn't actually happen to make that kind of final game against England. But yeah, maybe that's why I get the feeling that the Wallabies guys just feel a bit younger and less experienced. But I mean, the numbers would argue that maybe the experience is a factor, not so much the age thing. But yeah, thought it was an interesting look. I still reckon Dave Rennie's got his work cut out for him. Foster has had all that experience and time to get to know his guys. How he picks will likely be very different from this side that I've just whipped together. But like I said, I still think there's a fair bit of talent coming through in the Aussie comp. And I'm always hopeful of a very, very close Bledisloe. I think for World Rugby, it's definitely good to have Australia and New Zealand with a good, solid rivalry. But yeah, you guys let me know what you reckon. If you do see the All Blacks and the Wallabies play this year, what kind of chance do you give Dave Rennie's guys against Ian Foster's team? These are all kind of metrics that are absolutely measurable. Skill level, like positioning, mental fortitude for the game, all that kind of stuff is immeasurable stuff. But yeah, how much of an uphill slog do you think it's going to be for the Wallabies? Do you give them a chance? Or do you reckon Rennie maybe needs a couple of years to get his house in order? Anyway, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.